is Dennis Lee, and I came all the way from Dallas, Texas, just to be with you. And let me tell you, when I left this morning at 5 o'clock, it was raining down hard. So maybe you guys will get some of that, but hopefully not during sports game. We're going to have a great time this morning. Everybody say, okay. Okay. Because this morning, I'm going to tell you what the Lord taught me last year. Everybody say, what's that, Dennis Lee? Last year, the Father gave me a gentle tap on the shoulder and a gentle reminder of something that we all know, but we sometimes forget. Everybody say, what's that? It's a secret. If that doesn't work, then you give the baby the secret weapon, the milk bottle. That helps. The babies love the milk. No, they do, because milk helps them to blast off. Haven't you seen that commercial? God, milk? No, I do not. Here we go. That's what you call force feeding a baby. You have to be careful. Sometimes babies act like they're drinking when they're really not drinking. That sounds fun. We can use our baseball glove, and we can use a bat and a ball. It's going to be awesome. And I'm so glad you joined us here today on our very own YouTube channel called
Nana Puddin Tube.
Nana Puddin Tube. My name's Mr. Dennis Lee, and this is Baby Mickey. We call him
Nana Puddin.
It's how we got the name of our own channel, Nana Puddin Tube, right?
Right.
It's his favorite food, banana pudding. But he calls it
Nana Puddin.
Hey, this is the way we start every show. I count to 3 with you, and then you guys repeat Nana Puddin. Ready?
Ready.
1, 2, 3.
Nana Pudding!
That was awesome.
Awesome.
Hi, and welcome to Landon Live. Today I have with me Dennis Lee, family and school ventriloquist. Dennis, how are you doing today?
Awesome, Landon. So happy to be here. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for being a part of the show. So let's just get right into it. How did you start into ventriloquism?
When I was a little boy, my brother, his name is Chuck, he was an awesome athlete, and my dad was a 3-time All-American basketball player for Oklahoma. And my baby sister was born, Lisa, and she had cerebral palsy, and my mom used to say she's a special child with special needs. They'll have a special life. And so I was kind of looking for my place to fit in the family. And my mother said that I always loved puppets. So to keep my sister entertained, she used to put a sock on my hand while she was doing the laundry. And my mom would say, entertain your sister. And so Lisa was 4 years younger than I was. And so she thought it was funny what to make little voices with the sock puppets. And my mother loved Edgar Bergen and some famous ventriloquists from vaudeville and radio and television. And so one day she said, you know what, maybe you could learn to make the puppets talk without moving your mouth. And I was like, what? And so she taught me, my mom taught me ventriloquism from a 3-page book in about 6 months. And we got a long play record. For those who don't know what a record is, vinyl, it's like a giant CD, digital download. And I listened to that ventriloquism record. It was a long play record, and learned to, be a ventriloquist. My mom really taught me, even though she's not a practiced ventriloquist, she taught me how to be a ventriloquist. And so I've been doing ventriloquism since really did my first program when I was 10 years old in Carrollton Farmers Branch. My dad lifted me up on the bed of a hay truck, and it was called the Carrollton Country Fair. And I won first place, and my dad said I didn't need any more encouragement after that.
Wow.
An A-type personality and a blue ribbon go a long way.
Wow. That's the story, Dennis Lee. I love that. So you specialize in church, school, and family and fair shows, correct?
Correct. My career has really run the gamut. I've been doing it since I was 10. I was telling my dad today, we were just kind of reminiscing. And I said, I've done one job my entire life. ventriloquism, And so when I first began, I had the opportunity to do some work at, different churches and my own church. I had some really great children's pastors, Ronnie Adams and Sandra Saunders, and just some really great people that allowed us to use our talent within the walls of the church and outside the walls of the church. And so I kind of grew up thinking that whatever your gift was, whether it was you could dribble a basketball or you could draw a picture or you could sing a song or you were great in science, that, there was a place for you in church, and that you didn't just have to keep your gift inside the walls of the church, but you could also take it outside the walls of the church. So I kind of got my start there.
Yeah.
And then,
when did you come to that realization? Because it's really neat.
Well, I had a really, really great minister of music. His name was Jim Moses. And he was like, singers are great, because I really wanted to be a singer. And I wanted to, I played the piano and wrote music. And he was like, singers are great, Dennis, but, a lot of people can sing, but not a lot of people can do ventriloquism. And so why don't you sing and do ventriloquism? So I kind of combined those two things. But it was as a child, really.
Okay.
I was just given an extraordinary blessing. The older I get, the more I realize what a blessing it was that I have done one job my whole life. I worked at the Gap part-time just because I liked the discount on the clothes.
Yeah.
And then I waited tables when I was 14 for about 6 weeks. And I was like, are you kidding? This is hard work. When I can go do a birthday party and get paid $50, I'm going to work all week. And, so
That's
it was
hilarious.
a very easy.
That's really funny, because my sister's a waitress. so it's funny to we'll sit down for dinner every night, and or it used to be like that before the whole virus and everything. But I would go do a show, and I'd talk about my day, and then my sister would talk about all the different people she got to wait on that day, and just the different perspectives. So I totally get that. Yeah,
absolutely. And it is a hard job. You have to be, to be a waitress or a waiter. Anybody in the service industry, that's a hard job.
Yeah, definitely. Well, what was it, like you said, that you've done ventriloquism your entire life, which is just phenomenal. What was the progression like for you, and did you go to college, and what did you pursue in college? And when you finished college, how did that play out in terms of defining your career and what your path was?
Well, I graduated from Newman Smith High School, and I was involved in athletics, and I was involved in drama and speech. But really, while I was in even high school, I was already doing programs for nursing homes and for kids' birthday parties and vacation Bible schools, and really whoever would let me talk, I would come speak to them. And I began to earn a living that way. Even as a child in high school, a kid in high school. And then it wasn't until I got into the University of North Texas. I studied interpersonal communication and got my degree there at the Mean Green Fighting Eagles. I always say we weren't mean, but we were real green. And the best thing about us back then was the debating team. That's changed. But while I was at the University of North Texas, I was really trying to find a way to either get my master's degree in counseling and then go on to seminary. I really had not solely thought that ventriloquism would be my life work. I thought it would be a part of my life work. And so at North Texas, I did some program in the Denton Independent School District while I was a senior at North Texas. And just before I graduated, I did these programs for school children. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is, number one, it's fun. Number one, the audience and my brain kind of clicked with them. It's kind of the way I thought. I had a teacher's heart, so it really led me to be able to pursue a lot of different things at once. And I didn't want to just teach children math and science and art, poetry and history and language, although that is, of course, the most noble of professions, I wanted to teach them about kindness and friendship and acceptance and trying to make good life choices and being positive and how to celebrate their journey, because that has been part of my journey, has been learning to celebrate the gifts that I've been given and the unique qualities that they brought me. So I graduated from the University of North Texas, and that really kind of led me down a path while I was getting ready to apply for my master's degree. Before I could sign up and do the paperwork, some of the Denton Independent schools called a professor at North Texas and said, "Hey, is that guy Dennis Lee going to be doing, the programming with children this year?" And he said,
wow.
no, he did. Yeah. He said he just did that. His name was Dr. William Powers, Will Power. Can you believe that? I mean, that's pretty funny. Anyway, he passed their names on to me. And so I spoke with some principals and counselors and said, I was just doing the programming for your students as a part of my thesis. And they said, "Oh, well, Mr. Lee, will you come back and do a show for us? We'll pay you." And I was like, right. hold the phone. So I thought, I can teach, I can do a bit of counseling, I can do the art form that I love the most, and I can be paid for it. So that's really kind of how my career began to unfold. And then I just fell in love with talking to children. Our mission statement at my company, Dennis Lee Productions, is that we have spent years loving and teaching children and the people who love and teach them. Because I think we don't just speak to the children, we also speak to their moms and their dads and their grannies and foster parents and all the people that love and teach them. And the way that I do that is because I had such a rich upbringing with a mom and a dad who really loved us and cared for us, and teachers that really got me, and children's pastor who said, "Hey, you got a monkey puppet? Okay, come on, you come talk to us." So I was really blessed, lucky, fortunate, whatever you want to call it, that I was given the opportunity. Really, it kind of fell out of the sky, that's what I say, and hit me on the head. And then there was such a need for quality edutainment, kind of. And so I began to do programming in the public schools and for churches and for kids camps and for this, that, and the other. And that led me to television. And I did 36 episodes for the Family Network, which was a blast. It was a lot of fun. My own children to this day say, I just was talking to my eldest daughter and she was like, "Oh, remember how much fun that was?" And I was like, "I had to drag y'all out of bed every day and make you memorize your life." It was fun. It was a great time. And then the television series, what that did was that opened up a whole new part of the world, because then instead of just being a ventriloquist from, at that time, Farmers Branch, Texas, it opened up, California and Canada and the whole of America. And then what happened from there was then people would say, "Hey, we're going on a mission trip to Brazil. You want to go?" Or, "Hey, we're going to, different parts of Latin America. Do you speak any Spanish?" And I'd be like, "Ooh, yeah, just enough to make me dangerous, but I would love to go." And so really, I think God, whatever you want to call it in your own life, I would definitely call it God, opened up my heart and my life and gave me the opportunity to share my gifts of, ventriloquism and laughter and learning with children and the people who love and teach them. So that's really kind of how my career unfolded.
I love that. Can you talk a little bit about how you travel with your show? You're talking about traveling all over the world with your show. How does that work? Because your show is very set heavy, and you've got. I mean, it's a production. It is a Dennis Lee production when you see a performance.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
I like to think my show, I wanted to be different than other ventriloquists. I didn't just want to be, a ventriloquist with a wooden puppet and just kind of that patter.
Right,
Although I loved that. I mean, that's what I grew up on. But I really wanted something different for myself. I went to the ventriloquist convention. Yes, there is such a thing, where a bunch of people get together and talk about puppetry and ventriloquism and talk to themselves. And while I was there, I was a young man, but I was just old enough that I had to be in the senior division. So I did a part of the competition, and I had a wooden character at that time. His name was Danny, Dennis and Danny, and I won 4th place, and I was really upset that I thought I was a really super good ventriloquist technically, and I was. Even at a early age, because my mom really helped me to kind of get down, don't move your mouth and try to look natural and try to be clear. But when I won 4th place and I looked around at all the other ventriloquists, I realized that really I was kind of a dime a dozen when it came to, there was nothing unique about my program. So the next year I said, when I go back to compete, and I am going back, and it's not about me winning, although it kind of was, I'm going to do some things differently. And so I came up with new characters. Up until that time, I'd only worked with one ventriloquist character, and then I developed 4 over the course of that year. And that's kind of how I got my signature character. And what happened from that, Landon, was when I went back in the preparation time of a whole year, really focusing on performing at the ventriloquist convention, with the goal in mind that I did not want to be a dime a dozen ventriloquist. I wanted to do something unique and something that was special. And it opened up my eyes and my heart to a whole new way of thinking about my job and the art of ventriloquism that I loved so much and still love to this day. Every time I get a new puppet, it's like I feel like it's Christmas. So I went back to the competition and I won 1st place that year. And Jeff Dunham was one of the judges, and Paul from Las Vegas with the dragon. Golly, I can't believe I can't remember his name. Anyway, because they were my idols, and so they were judging me, and they gave me 1st place. And then I got an originality award. And what that did was it lit a fire underneath me that said, oh, this is a way that I can be unique in ventriloquism and still teach children. And I kind of consider my show like Branson kind of meets Las Vegas, but for children and
I
for
love
families.
That. That's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
It has
That's
music.
fantastic.
And every year I do a new theme. I do a totally new set. I use 2 core characters, Baby Mickey, who I call Nana Puddin, and then his older brother, Nick. And then all the other characters change. And really, after you do a program 450 times during the course of a year, by the time it gets around for my new show, I am ready for it. I'm ready to lay down the props and the set and the songs that you've been singing, even though it morphs and it changes.
I'm sure you're also able to market it to your client base too.
Absolutely.
Next year's show. Yeah.
I learned very early on from a lady. Her name was Catherine Bassett. She said the best way for you to not get invited back is to continue doing the same old show over and over and over and over and over. And not only is it not good for your audience, it's not good for you. I mean, you get bored as an artist, if you're just going to say the same phrases over and over and over. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some pieces of your program that people are going to expect when you've worked for such a long time, that it's kind of like a Grammy award winning artist not singing their hits. They just want to sing their new stuff. The audience is not going to have that, So you kind of have to reach a balance, but there are ways to repackage your program and still do what makes you unique and what you're known for, but for it to be put into a brand new show and it to still interest you and interest your audience.
Wow, I love that. And you have a few DVDs out, is that correct?
Yeah. When we did 36 episodes for the Family Network with Denise Cook was my producer, and Billy Ray Rippey was my manager at the time. Nancy Burks, who is now Nancy Burks Wooster, Doc Gibbs, Lindy Phillips, they were my co-stars on the program. Nancy and I and Ray Rippey wrote 36 episodes. I wrote all of the music except for 6 songs for each episode, including the theme song and the ending song. And then we did, we were on a budget, but someone else did these really elaborate set for us, and it was called the Nana Puddin Show. And we did 2 versions. We did one version that could be aired on Christian television network, and then we did one version that it didn't matter what religion you were, you could watch it and still take something awesome for you and your family away from it. And I've learned a lot from that. That's kind of the way that I think about my journey even now. I don't just want to speak to a Christian audience. I want to speak to whoever wants to listen. And I think that I have something to say to not just my Christian base, or not just the school children and teachers and counselors, principals and assistants that I speak to and have spoken to. Now I'm on my 3rd generation. I want to be able to speak to whoever wants to listen. And I think I learn a lot from my audiences, and hopefully they've learned a lot from me.
Well, I absolutely love that, and every now and then I'll see on Facebook people connecting with you and saying, "Oh, I have a family now, but I remember when you were at my school and this and this." And what's that like to see that they still remember you and that you've made an impact in these people's lives?
It's overwhelming, is how it is. It's overwhelming in the most wonderful way, like a sea of kindness that washes over you daily. And in our industry, in any industry, when you're in the public eye, there can often be harsh criticisms, and don't get me wrong, I've had my share of harsh criticisms, directed at me too.
Sure.
But I have been so blessed, lucky, fortunate, whatever you want to call it, to just be bombarded and soaked with people's kindnesses about, hey, Mr. Lee, when I was in 2nd grade, you came to my school, and now my 2nd grade daughter watches you. Or, hey, Mr. Lee, my grandkids love you, and I loved you when I was in school. I mean, really, literally, it's kind of that. Or, hey, I saw you at a kids camp back in 1972. So it is overwhelming in the most wonderful way. It is a responsibility too. To kind of stay true to what it is that my life has been about, and at the same time to reflect the truths of my journey in an authentic way, and to let people into more than just sets and puppets. And really, it wasn't until my accident, in all honesty, and in 2016, I had a near fatal car accident. Coming home from a show in Katy, Texas, my car was smashed by 2 18-wheelers, and it nearly cost me my life. It took them 45 minutes to get out of the car. I was in a hospital in College Station for a month, and rehabilitation for another month. And then I lived with my 80-year-old parents and my physically challenged sister for a month. And it was, of course, probably one of the most trying times of my journey. I didn't know if I could go back to ventriloquism. I didn't know if I could get back to traveling on the road. I didn't know if I was going to be able to do any of it. And while I was flat on my back looking up, people began to visit me and send me notes and letters. And my mom and dad's garage literally just filled up with notes and letters from people saying, Mr. Lee, you have to get better. Nana Puddin Guy, please come back to our church or our school or our camp. And literally that stood me on my feet on the days where, the left side of my body was really smushed. It didn't get my moneymaker though. Just there, not get the money. But it really, to answer your question, it opened my eyes and my heart to the impact that my journey had on others. And not only the journey of doing programming in schools for all those years in churches and camps and on the television show, but also just being willing to be authentic with people and to say, I am crushed. My life is in a mess right now. I don't know how I'm going to get back up or if I can get back up. And just being able to be honest with people like that, I didn't understand what ministry that was going to be to people, because sometimes people see you on a stage, or they see you on a television screen, or on your YouTube channel, or on a DVD, or listen to you on a CD, or all these years, and they assume that your life is one way all the time. And nobody's life is one way all the time, because I'm a human being just like everybody else. If there's anything that we're all learning during this time where COVID-19 is ravaging our world, it is that, people are hurting, whether they're hungry, 1 in 5 children in America, whether they can't do their programming, they can't earn a living, they don't know where their next dollar is going to come from, or if they're going to keep a roof over their head. So being authentic with people, and I think just like being willing to talk with people, and not being afraid to say, man, this stinks. I was just getting back on my feet physically, financially, and my programming was really just getting back on its feet. And then, of course, everything shuts down. For us, it shut down March the 4th. So just about the time that I was, thinking, okay, woohoo, here we go. I'm going to ride this out till my retirement in the most wonderful way. Then it got kind of stood on its ear. And I know that a lot of people, including people that entertain and are in service industries, waitresses, waiters, people are, they're hurting. They're trying to figure out what's going to come next. And so I'm like that too. Anyway, it caused me to listen whenever I fell on, such hard times in my journey. It caused me to be able to hear someone say, Mr. Lee, you made such a difference in my life. Please don't give up. And then people's kindnesses stood me up on my feet. And if you've never been down, you don't really, maybe you don't understand that, but words matter. And when people are kind to you and they say such nice things, being a performer, you kind of learn to take criticism with a grain of salt, because it goes with your journey. Everybody always has an opinion about what you're doing.
Definitely.
And you kind of have to be really careful. I don't surround myself with people who tell me yes, 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 yes. I surround myself with people who are going to say, Dennis, oh my gosh, what were you thinking about that? That just does not work. Or Dennis, how sensitive is that? Or hey, Dennis, I think that that show was your best one ever. Or so that way you grow. The only way to grow is to kind of have some ups and downs and some failures, and nobody likes, huh?
I'm sure the other perspective too helps you, when you're working on developing bits, or maybe you weren't sure about the way something looked on stage, and
right,
keeping it growing.
Someone else's eyes, someone else's ears, someone else's mouth to say, because as ventriloquist, unless you were taping yourself and watching everything going on, you sometimes you don't know how funny it looks, or how dead it looks, or how lifeless the character appears, or how you I don't know, your costuming doesn't work, or and all of that is really ventriloquism has just been an outlet for me to be able to share storytelling and teaching and counseling with the world. Really, that's the truth of it.
Well, I want to share this story with you. You had accepted to be my mentor in the ISN program when I was a senior in high school. And that was just, that honestly did change my life. And I was able to see you perform your live shows. And we had a winter showcase halfway throughout the year. And you would see, we were at the Cowboy Stadium, the Star. And there were a bunch of different tables from different high schools, and you would see, people who wanted to be therapists, doctors, and at the very end, in the corner, was this kid who had this whole elaborate ventriloquist setup that looked like a science fair ventriloquist setup, and kids, teenagers that were also in the program were interested because I had puppets over there, and they're like, "Well, so who's your mentor?" And I said, "Dennis Lee." And they go, "Wait a minute, is that the Nana Puddin Guy?" And they freaked out. They're like, "How did you get him as your mentor?" And it was such a neat experience, because everyone, we grew up seeing you perform at our schools, and it was so neat that you're just you're just such a common and familiar name among
Well,
my generation. So it was truly an
thank you.
experience.
That is so kind. It's funny because I have 4 children, and it's funny because through the years, their weddings,
Mhm.
they're all married, but my baby daughter, but going to different events, and then like it's obviously I have changed over the years. It's what
Mhm.
happens to you in your journey, but I would go to a wedding or I'd go to some formal function, and my children's friends would be like, they'd be introducing me. This is my dad, Dennis, da 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 da, and the kids would be like, he looks really familiar, and then and, right, and
Oh, I
then
love
and
that.
then
Oh my
and
goodness.
then my kids would say, well, he probably came to our school or your school or blah blah blah. He's the Nana Puddin Guy. And then it was funny to see my children's reaction to other children's reaction to me, because my kids are just my kids. They grew up on TV. They grew up. I
Sure.
drove them
Yeah.
to every show.
They're
They
used
worked
to
my
it. Yeah.
tail. It's just like, if your parent is a doctor, you don't think of anything. You just think your parent, that's the way every
Right.
parent is at a doctor. But
Yeah. A
it was
job is
funny
a job. Right.
and it was funny, Landon, to hear the kindnesses of other, like you are saying.
Mhm.
Um, it was really, really a blessing to hear that. And thank you for your kind words. I really appreciate that.